Hello, and welcome everyone to another episode of Ask a STEM Star. I am delighted today to have Dr. Monica High with us. Dr. High is the founder of SisSTEM, and she will be sharing with us her many experiences throughout her STEM career, and we'll be asking her some questions about her journey. So thank you so much, Dr. High, for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Okay. So I'm just going to jump right into a couple questions, especially about the beginning of your journey in STEM. We see from your bio that you decided to attend an HBCU. And I just wanted to get some info from you on what drove you to attend a historically Black college, and what was your experience like as an undergraduate STEM major?
Well, so that's a really good question. I come from a family where HBCUs are a big thing. So me going to an HBCU wasn't a surprise to my family, but it was a surprise to my counselors and my teachers in high school. And I remember because I live in North Carolina, so there's lots of great state schools here. And I remember when I was applying to schools, teachers were just surprised that I wasn't applying to Duke and UNC. There was like, you have the grades, you have the test scores. Why would you go to this school in Florida that I've never heard of when you could be at Duke? And that was back in the day when schools would actually call you.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted top-notch Black scholars. So Duke was calling me, and I was like, I just don't really want to go there. And I'm from Charlotte, grew up in Charlotte, and Charlotte's pretty diverse, but at the same time, because I was in advanced classes, I was always one of a few. So I really wanted to go somewhere where I would be one of many and just kind of immerse myself in Black culture, so to speak. And so when I got to FAM, it was an experience unlike anything that I could ever imagine. I remember there were some days I would just step back and just say, wow, I can't imagine not having this experience, just being embraced and empowered, and you just seeing Black excellence on a level that I wasn't used to seeing it. And I really think that if it weren't for FAM, I probably would not have a PhD. Not saying that I wouldn't have gone on to do great things, but it wasn't something that I ever really thought about. I just kind of thought that if you like science and you want to go far, you get an MD. That's what you do. You become a doctor. Just the thought of research or anything other than being a doctor never really entered my mind. And so going there and being pushed into doing internships and meeting other people, it brought me to where I'm at now. So I recommend it for anyone. HBCUs are amazing.
That is so awesome to hear. And I think that a lot of students, that is something that, they don't consider. It's not something that maybe in their family, or they didn't have the exposure to HBCUs. It's not something that necessarily crosses their mind, and they might not have the, school counselors or, mentors that are, putting those in front of them. So it's really awesome to hear about your experience then. So I am curious then, you did go on to graduate school, and went to a majority school, right? So what was the transition like then, going from, this being surrounded by Black excellence and being one of many, to transition to a majority, white university, and what were some of the key differences and challenges for you?
So I will say that the key thing, it was a culture shock. Even though from kindergarten through 12th grade, I was pretty much in diverse settings. It wasn't amongst a bunch of Black people. I had white people, Asians, everyone's in my classes. But for 4 years, I didn't have to think about being Black. I was just me. And after a while at a HBCU, you don't even really realize that you're surrounded by all Black people, because you start to notice other differences. Like, that person's just annoying, and they're not Black, they're just annoying. So then when I went to Carolina, which is, I mean, it's a PWI, but it's a pretty diverse PWI. You know, it's always rated top for friendly PWIs for African Americans. But I was the only Black person in my entering PhD class. And that hit me when I walked into that room. And for some reason, it never occurred to me that I would be the only one. And when I walked in and realized I was not only the only Black woman, but I was the only Black person, it really hit me. And then I became insecure, not only because I was Black, but because I know that I attended an HBCU and that people look at them a certain way. So I'm in the room with people who went to Princeton and all of these other top schools. And even though we're in the same place now, it's like, they don't think I really need to be here. They probably think I'm here because of affirmative action. And I know now, I didn't know what to call that now, but now I know that was imposter syndrome, because I always just felt like I have to work twice as hard. I got to be better. I got to be better. And I was so afraid to fail, and so afraid because I thought that if I did fail or struggle, they would attribute that to me being Black. And I felt like I had to represent everyone that is Black. Because if I fail, not only did Monica fail, but all Black people are now dumb because I didn't understand something. And it really negatively impacted my experience in grad school because I became afraid to ask questions. I never wanted to ask for help, because if you ask for help, that's admitting that you don't understand, which is admitting to me I thought that meant that you're not smart. So I actually struggled for a while in graduate school just because I was just so afraid to ask any questions. And I would just sit in class and not understand a thing that was being said to me. So probably for like the first 3 years of grad school, it was just my ego and my pride just being like hammered every single day. So it was a struggle. That transition was a struggle, but I realized a lot of it was self-inflicted. It wasn't because Carolina was here and Fan was here. It was because I just felt pressure to perform, and I wasn't used to being in that situation.
Wow. Truly insightful, especially, your comment about asking questions, because it's such an important part of being a STEM major and
Right.
a scientist, is all about asking questions and knowing when and how to ask questions. And so just hearing that, if students of color, our Black students that are at PWIs are thinking about, asking questions and being curious, which are inherently what you're supposed to be as a scientist, then you're holding back, that is something I think that needs to be known, and needs to be taken into consideration when students are, entering these environments, having previously not been, surrounded by students of other races. So very, very insightful. I think that I didn't attend an HBCU, but I'm fascinated by them. Fascinated by people who attended them. So that is awesome. While you were at UNC, though, you landed in toxicology,
Right.
which is unique. And did you have? I know a lot of people that go into toxicology end up doing like pharmacology, like they end up in like farm school. So how did you land on toxicology, and what was that like in grad school?
So this is a funny story. Now I'm going to sound really scatterbrained. So when I was my junior year in college, I remember we were in a study group, and by that time I was going to med school. In my mind, I was going to go to med school. I was going to be a doctor, and then I was going to do research with my MD, though, because I didn't really think about having a PhD. And we were in a study group, and someone mentioned that the MCAT was 8 hours, and I said, an 8-hour test? And they said yes, and I said, Monica, I won't be doing that. And so from then on, I decided PhD, that's what I'm doing. I'm not taking this 8-hour test, which in hindsight was just a horrible reason to like change the trajectory of your life. But that's what I decided. I wasn't going to sit down for 8 hours and take a test.
Listen, that out early. So
right. So I had to decide what I was going to get a degree in, my PhD in. So what I did was I made a list of all the possible careers that I wanted. So it was forensic scientist. There was bioterrorism. I wanted to do disease research. I wanted to do I don't remember everything, but it was a lot of different careers that I had written down. So, because I knew it at 20, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So I had this whole list of careers. And so then I said, well, what is a degree that could fit into every career? And that's how I came across toxicology. I had never heard of toxicology. I mean, no, I don't think I'd ever heard of it before, but I just noticed that that was a degree that fit into every career that I wanted. So I knew that regardless of what I wanted to do, if I had this degree in toxicology, I could get any of these jobs. I could pursue any of these careers. So that's how I ended up in toxicology.
Gotcha. And, we won't go too far into the weeds, but if you could tell us a little bit about your graduate work and your research and what you ended up defending with your
Okay.
position, just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't get too deep into it because I'm sure you probably know once you start talking about your dissertation, people's eyes just kind of glaze over. They're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But RSV is basically a virus that all infants get usually before the time they're 2. And so my research was focused on what are the differences in everyone's DNA that make some people more susceptible to it than others. So why is it that some people, well, some infants get it and you don't even know they got it? Some it presents as a bad cold, while some require hospitalization. So I was just focused on trying to find those genetic polymorphisms or differences that contribute to those differences in presentation. So ultimately, long-term goal was to use that information to help develop treatment. And so since I've left the lab 10 years, 10 years ago I left, and they're still working on developing that. So.
Awesome. Well, that actually does sound like very interesting and, uh, work that could be fulfilling. And so, now I'm curious why you kind of left that environment and left, doing that work for a career in industry. So, tell us a little bit about your time at Avon Products and how was it different from academia? And, what did you feel prepared? Entering a whole different sector, and why?
So so when I started grad school, I knew I wanted to do research. I wanted to do something that involved research. And when I got into grad school and I actually started doing research, it was like, this is interesting, but while it's rewarding in the long term, research you have to have patience. You don't really see, there's no instant gratification. It's like you found a protein and it took you 5 years to find this protein. Like there's nothing, I mean, it's great work, right? It's great work and you and your colleagues are excited, but it just wasn't anything that I felt like I need something where I go home and feel like I did something. So when I was applying for jobs, I saw the job at Avon and I really didn't know what it was, but I was like, I like makeup, so let's give it a try. Like I like makeup, New York City, let's do this. So I applied. And so basically what I did at Avon was I was a product safety toxicologist. So making sure that the raw ingredients in the products were safe, that the products themselves were safe. They followed all federal and world regulations. You're not going to break out. No one's like, if you eat your lipstick, you'll be okay. Yeah, so that's kind of what I did there. And I actually liked it. I really, really loved what I did. I was like, this is amazing. But it was just something in the back of my head that was just like, this is cool, but it's not exactly what you want. And part of the draw was the money. It was like, this is a really high paying job. Like you're making good money. You're not even 30 years old and you're making good money. Why are you unhappy? And that's when I kind of realized that money isn't everything. So you really need to try to figure out what it is that makes you happy. So then I evaluated the things that I did in my life and figured out, well, at what point in your, like, what point of your day makes you excited? And so I would really get excited about take your daughter or bring your daughter to work day. I think that's what it's called, where bring their children. And I think they changed it to bring your child to work day,
Yeah.
So, but that was the days that I would get excited because I got to work with children and got to expose them to different science techniques. They would make slime and all this other stuff. They would play with makeup, make lip glosses and things like that. So that was the stuff that I really enjoyed. And so I just felt like I wanted to do something that honed in on that more, but I didn't know what that looked like because I didn't want to let go of my good money job.
Now, I want to talk about that for just a moment before I move on to the next thing, because did you have any guidance or, mentors or anyone that was telling you while you were in academia about what moving into industry was going to be like? I think we all hear about you'll be well paid, or you'll be, greatly compensated if you enter industry, with this biomedical or life science background. But were you getting any other insights, or, did anyone kind of tell you like might not be fulfilling, might not,
Right.
anyone?
So unfortunately, that is something that I would love to go back into my life. I never really had a true career mentor at any point in time in my life. And I know we'll probably talk about SisSTEM a little bit later, but that's kind of one of the focuses of it, is to pair young girls with women in STEM careers so that they have that mentor that can kind of guide them throughout all the steps. Because for the most part, throughout my life, I was just spitballing. I was just throwing stuff at the wall and just kind of figuring out, does it stick? Do I like it? Does it sit well with me? And I look back on my life, and while I don't regret my journey because I learned like stuff, even though I'm not in academia now, I learned something from it. Even though I'm not in industry, I learned something from it. And I feel like I'm bringing all those skills together now. But I feel like my trajectory would have been much easier had I had someone there that was able to guide me through it, as opposed to me just, I mean, there was lots of failures, lots of times where I was just like, what am I doing? So, and even in grad school, when I hit that point where I was struggling, had I had someone there to say, look, we all struggle. Because I feel like in academia, a lot of people put on this face that, we're all smart. So therefore, we don't struggle because we are smart. We are just so educated. And had there just been a woman, like someone there that's like, Monica, I struggled too. Like I had to retake biostats too. So that I wouldn't feel so less than.
Yes.
Because I never reached out to anyone because I just didn't want anyone to know how much I was struggling and how much pain I was feeling about where I was. So
That is just so, I think for many of us, it actually goes back to the imposter syndrome and things that you mentioned earlier, right? Because not knowing that those women that you look up to also have like suffer from that syndrome, just not knowing that, for not talking to them about it, makes you feel like you're alone or you're the only person that's experienced that. And being able to see that, okay, my professor has had those same thoughts and feelings, and oh, she's a professor now, so those things can be overcome is huge. And so I do want to get into your finally moving on to what you're doing right now, and you talked a little bit about this when you talked about the bring your daughter to work day, but I was curious if there was like one thing that kind of sparked that leap from industry into education, if there was like a, an aha, like that's what it is. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. And, how difficult was it to now say, I'm willing to take the pay cuts. I'm willing to, kind of put this behind me and move on.
Mhm. So I don't feel like it was an aha moment. I feel like it was something that was always pulling on me.
Okay.
So being a teacher was something that I always kind of wanted to do, but from a young age, because I come from a large family of teachers. Almost everyone's a teacher except for my parents. And so I was familiar with the profession, and I was like, I want to be a teacher, but all of my teacher family members are like, girl, you don't want to be a teacher. Go make your money. Go make your money, be an engineer and get some money. You don't want to be with us. And I remember I was in my apartment in New York City talking to my cousin who's a teacher. I was talking to her on the phone, and I said, I think I'm just going to quit and be a teacher. And she said, girl, before you do that, go to the North Carolina Department of Education's website, and I want you to check out your salary. Then I want you to check out your bank account and see if you really prepare for that. So I went and I did what she told me to do. And I was like, and I called her back and said, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm gonna stay in New York. And then it just finally got to the point where I was just, even though had a job that at one point in time I loved so much. And then one day I just wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, God, what am I supposed to do? And I just felt like I kept getting these signs that this is not where you're supposed to be. Your time here is up. You need to move on. So I packed up, quit my job. I didn't have another job. I just said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. So I quit my job. And, you know, if you live in New York City, if you quit your job, you got to leave. Like, you can't stay. So I quit my job and I moved back in with my parents. And that was a hard thing for me to do because I think at the time I was 33 or 32. And to move back in with your parents after you've been gone since 18, it was demoralizing because it was just kind of like, what am I doing with my life? The fact that now I have a PhD, I'm 32 years old, and I'm sleeping in my bed that I slept in when I was 18. So I just felt like I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. But I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I still didn't know that I wanted to be a teacher. I mean, I still wasn't trying to be a teacher because I wasn't trying to get a paycheck. But then it just kept bugging me, like, this is what you're supposed to do. So then I said, well, I'll try it. You know, so I worked with my cousin, that cousin I was talking to. So she is an elementary teacher. And she said, well, how about you come in 4 days a week and you'll do the math and science lessons for us. So I was a 5th grade math and science teacher for a few months. And then I did some pullouts for them. And I was like, I like this. And so she was like, well, if you like it, then maybe you should try it. But I think maybe you should try high school. So I applied for a job, got a job at a specialty health science high school, and which was great for a starting teacher because the classes were small, the kids were motivated, and I just loved it. It was like, this is like everything just kind of clicked to the point where the pay didn't even bother me. It was like, you know what, God's gonna provide, I'm good. So I really loved it. And so I've been teaching, this is my 6th year now. So it was just, everything came together. But probably about 2 years, maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, it was like, okay, I'm teaching, I like it, but there's something else. I feel like there's something else God wants me to do. Like, I'm not supposed to just sit here because I have all these skills in my wheelhouse and I need to utilize them. So I wanted to bring everything together. And so I looked back on my journey through STEM and I said, what is it that I wish that I would have had at each stage in my life that I feel like these young girls should have? Because I would get so many girls in my class that are like, I've never had a Black science teacher before, or I've never met a Black woman with a PhD. And it was just like, when they realized that I had a PhD or that I was a doctor, it was like, wait a minute, what? You're a doctor, but why you ain't working at a hospital though? It's like, that's not what all doctors do. You know, I have a PhD, not an MD. And so it's just a lot of things that I like to focus on now is just exposure. So getting girls at a young age excited about STEM, any field of STEM, and keeping them engaged and encouraging them and and setting them up with mentors so that as they progress through the course, they have someone to talk to. Also, just exposing them. So one thing that I do with SisSTEM is I try to expose them to careers, because I feel like even though I was pretty knowledgeable, I mean, I was supported by my parents through my journey with STEM, I still didn't know a lot about the different careers because, like I told you, I was still set on being a doctor and then just doing something from there. And my senior year in college, I heard about all these different, it was second semester, my senior year in college, I heard about all these different careers. And I was just thinking, why didn't they tell us this like 3 years ago? Because now the deadlines have passed. I can't apply. Like, I'm already in grad school. Like, I already applied to grad school. I sent them a deposit. Like, my future's set. But I wish I would have heard about these opportunities before. So I just think that there's so many other routes in STEM that a lot of people just don't realize or don't know about, and that they heard about, they don't know how to get there. So I think that is so important when you're trying to figure out what your trajectory is going to be through STEM, because there's a lot to it, and just providing that support. So that is what my mission is now. My mission is just to get young Black girls excited about STEM, and then if they don't want to go any further with STEM, that's fine. But just for them to see that representation, even if they decide they want to do business, the fact that you saw Black excellence, you know that you can achieve it in your field too.
Yes. So. That is so awesome. I am, inspired by, your story and that you've been able to maneuver through all of these different these pathways and, like you mentioned, learned something along the way, and you've taken that to what you're doing now. And so tell us a little bit more about how to find SisSTEM, how to follow you, and how to kind of keep up with you.
Okay, so right now, SisSTEM is on Instagram at SIS_STEM. And so I try to post pretty regularly, and I post experiments, little experiments you can do at home, fun facts. Yeah, I do a fun fact Friday. On Wednesdays, I try to highlight some woman that's doing something amazing in STEM. I do math puns, just trying to get realize there's STEM all around you. Sometimes we do nature walks, things like that. So that's where I am on Instagram. Also, you can follow me directly on Instagram at Dr. Dr. M. High and on Instagram. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, again, I just want to say I am just so thrilled to have had you, on Ask a STEM Sister today. And we're just going to be keeping up with what you're doing and following you. And, also, we have a similar goal in outreach and wanting to expose, especially young women, to all the different STEM careers out there and just to let them see us. I think it's important to have some visibility and see that the Dr. Monica Highs exist out there.
Right. And that was one thing that really encouraged me once I decided, like, because SisSTEM has been something that's been in my head for a while. And I said it out loud for the first time last year. And so I've had some friends that have been holding me accountable, like, when are you going to do this? You keep talking about this. And then once I kind of really got into this world, I realized there's so many other Black women out there that are about STEM, that are trying to push that same agenda. So I'm excited to see what this next generation is going to look like, as far as, the STEM boardrooms and like the research facilities. Just like all these Black women are going to start flooding these things, so that when the next generation walks into their first day of their doctorate studies, it's not just like, oh, so it's just me, and be like, hey girl, hey. So.
Yes, that would be awesome. And and hopefully, a girl watching this or a girl that's following, either of our platforms will be one of those girls.
So. Right.
Well, that's all that I have for you. And again, like Dr. High has said, go ahead and follow her on Instagram on both of her accounts. Go ahead, and if you've watched this video all the way till now, you like it. So go ahead and hit the thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so that you can find out, when we have more videos dropping. So thank you so much again, and we'll see you in the next.
Thank you. Bye.